Alright, so this is the electroforming cell video. Woo! Merry Christmas. I'm going to show you a cool build for an electroforming tank for those individuals that are ready to get away from their 3,000 milliliter glass tank. Okay, nice having a glass tank, but the one thing is if you tip that thing over, you're done. Okay, so this is a super safe build. It's kind of a mid-level tank for electroforming. This is a transition between having like 3,000 and the next one past this would be the 5-gallon tank if you're doing really big things. But this will do a lot of your smaller stuff and super safe. Okay, so it's good against pets. It's good against bugs falling in there. It's good against dehydration that occurs in your solution, and it's also yeah, it's just super safe. So if you open this thing up, okay, you got a lid. It's got hinges on it. I'm just going to take it off, put it on the side. There's no steel in this tank whatsoever. I'm going to cover that, but I'm going to keep repeating it over and over because I always see that number one thing that you're not supposed to do is put any steel in the tank. Alright, so the attachments all go on the outside of the tank, so any of the clips clip on the outside of the tank, including the cathodes and the anodes clip on the outside. The cells, there's 2 cells. They work in conjunction with each other, so you can fill both of them with electroforming solution. And that way, if one cell goes a little south, you can always go to the other one. If you need to filter out one, you just take that side off and then filter it and through a couple coffee filters and put it back in there. But the cells are independent from each other. That way it's a little lighter for people that are trying to filter solution. If you're trying to filter a 5-gallon bin of solution, you need almost special kind of equipment to do that. This you don't have to. You can just use a milk jug and 2 coffee filters and a funnel. Okay, so I got videos on that too somewhere on the channel. Alright, so we're going to get into the build. I'll remind you that this is not about doing the electroforming solution at all. It's just the tank build and that's it. If you want to learn how to mix electroforming solution, I do have all the recipes on my website below, and I have a class that basically walks you through how to make the solution step by step via video and how to set up a safe lab. Alright, so here we go. We're building the electroform cell tank. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is go over the materials that you're going to need for the build, and I'm going to try to remember them all. I got them all here, but there's a lot of things like tools and stuff that you might need. A lot of the tools are just pretty common, but you might not have a couple of them. So I'm going to go through everything, and then we'll get into the build. Alright, so the first material is this material. It's a polyester filter. It's 1 micron. It's a link below. Now, it doesn't come in any smaller form on Amazon. You might want to look the one on Amazon and see if you can resource this somewhere else. Maybe you live in a factory town or something like that, and they have like you might be able to find it somewhere else. But essentially, you're going to be making little pouches like this. And you only need 2 of these little pouches, and they last quite a long time. So you can rinse them out with distilled water and reuse them over and over again. So you only need to make 2 of those, but you get all this. Again, remember this is 1 micron, not 5. Do not buy 5 micron. It is too small. It will slow down the process. Alright, so this is called magnet wire. I believe this is 14 gauge. Yeah, it's about 12 or 14 gauge. It's pretty old. You don't need this much, but tend to get a thicker gauge. The reason you need this is because if you don't get it with a lacquer coating, it will disintegrate in the tank. Okay, so it has to have the lacquer coating in order to make it into a clip. So you're going to be making these clips on the back of the anode bag. Alright, and since it's making contact with the anode bag, it can dissolve this. The only reason it doesn't dissolve is because it's coated in lacquer. So it's called magnet wire or lacquer wire, or I think there's another name for it, but magnet wire is usually the common name for it. Okay, you're going to need some 4 AWG, so 4 gauge bare copper wire. You can find this at your local hardware store. It looks like this. It's really thick, and you're going to be using this in a couple spots, but 5 feet will definitely do it. I don't think they come in any smaller packets, but yeah, 5 feet will definitely work. You can always use this with electroforming too on certain things. You know, you can use it in your composition work, so it's not like you're going to not ever use it. In fact, having a couple of these that are clean would benefit you, so that you could just switch them out. So, alright, you're going to need copper pipe. It's got to be pipe, it can't be wire. Copper pipe has phosphorus in it, and that's what's needed in order to get a proper plate. So get phosphorized copper pipe. Now it's already phosphorized. Any water pipe within the United States has phosphorus already in it. This is type L. Type L has a thicker wall, so it lasts a lot longer. It's a little bit more expensive, but I would highly suggest getting the L, class L, not class M. Okay, you're going to need these boxes. They are called light boxes. You're going to need one of these, and they're really nice because they got these little red things that come in handy. It's got a closed lid, it's got a hinged lid, and it's really tall. So you find these around Christmas time. Awesome boxes. I'm pretty sure they're on Amazon. I'll put a link below if they're on Amazon. They should be, but just in case, here is the dimensions of it. Here's the name of it, and everything else you might need about it. Okay, you need one of those. Okay, while we're on the topic of boxes, you're going to need 2 cell boxes. These are the little smaller cells that fit down into it. So these are clip boxes, they're called, by Sterilite. Here is the dimensions of them. Okay, here's the information about it. Serial number and everything. Again, I'll put a link below if they are on Amazon. But those are the 2 boxes, so you'll need 2 of the smaller ones. You need 2 of these and 1 of these. Okay, some tools that you're going to need. I would suggest a plastic hammer or a rubber hammer. It's called the 4-in-1 multi-head hammer. This is just a good hammer for copper anyway, so it's good to have around. You get this at Harbor Freight, but yeah, it's essential, I would say, for the build, just to make or shape this to be straight or to harden the copper. To flatten the copper, you're going to need one of these bad boys. So you don't have to have it this big. This is, I think, a 16-pound hammer, but you can just use a regular hammer. Essentially what you're going to be doing is taking some of the 4 gauge and smashing it into this shape right here. Okay, hot glue gun. You're going to need one of those. It's over there and it's all plugged in, but any size hot glue gun will work. And here's kind of the deal breaker for some. You're going to have to find some way to heat this copper after you flatten it, because it's going to be really hard. You're going to have to find a buddy or somebody that has a torch to heat the copper back up so that it's pliable. So this piece, you can see it's easy to bend because it's been fired, and no problem, I could shape it. But before, after I hammered it, it was not fired, and therefore it was stiff and I couldn't bend it at all. It would just break. So it can't be hardened copper. After you flatten it, you got to find a way to heat it back up to red or orange, or even to yellow, and getting it to the point where it's nice and soft. You also have to find a way to clean it so that it takes off the carbon on the outside. Some people use vinegar and salt for that. I would suggest probably just vinegar and salt. Just soak it in there. And then maybe steel wool to polish the outside. So the coarse steel wool might be required too. Okay, a wood burner. You're going to need this to make holes in PP. It's a type of plastic. You cannot drill the plastic. It will crack the plastic. You're going to need some form of either wood burner or stained glass type of soldering iron. Something, you know, roughly up in the ranges of, I want to say 300, yeah, about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Will work quite nicely. This is a 20 watt. It worked quite well, and this is your atypical burner you find in the United States at most hardware stores. A longer tip would be nice, something that's not beveled like this, so that you can burn slots instead of holes. You're going to need a tape measure, a Sharpie marker, and you're also going to need some area to flatten out copper, whether that be a big piece of steel so that you can go like this and hammer on the copper. See, it doesn't flatten in midair, so you got to have some kind of metal backing or an anvil or something flat, big and metal-like to flatten out your copper. Another thing you can do is just throw it through a rolling mill. That's another option. If you got a Peppy tool rolling mill, that works out quite well. But other than that, I think that's all the tools, unless I add something in there that yeah, we'll see. Okay, so the first thing you should do is probably go cut some copper pipe. You need to cut it to about 9 1/2 to use these type of bins. So I would just, cut a bunch of this stuff. You're going to be using it. So take your 5 feet section you usually buy from a hardware store and cut it. Cut it into 9 1/2 inch sections, and that fits right in this bin. Okay? So the next thing you need to do is cut a piece of this to about 10 inches and then flatten it out, and you should get something that looks like this. Okay? Probably a lot shorter. I think this is a little bit longer than the 10 inches. But what you're going to be doing with this is you're going to take it, after you flatten it, after you clean it, after you soften it, you're going to be wrapping it around this pipe. And you're going to make something that looks like that. Make something that looks like that, and then you're going to squish it together like that. So essentially you're going to make a clamp around this pipe. Okay? And it's going to have 2 narrower pieces that are like that. Okay? Should be able to go like this. And that's about all the tension you really need in order to get a good contact on the anode. We need these bins. Okay, you don't do anything with the bins at all. It's fun. Okay, we'll just kind of mock up these in here. Okay, they sit in there like that. You're going to take the red pieces and you're going to burn a hole at all the way up from the very bottom. Here's this section. Notice there's a difference. This has a little hook. This one doesn't. You're going to burn a hole from 4 3/4 and 3 1/2, and that's where your bar is going to go all the way through here for your cathode. Okay, you can drill through all 4 of them at once because you're going to be using all of them. Okay. Alright, so you're going to take that material and you're going to cut it into strips. That is 5 1/4 by 3 1/8. Okay. Now, whether you are a person that can sew or not, you can sew 4 of those together. So basically what you do, see, this is a kind of a pouch. You're going to just sew all the way around the outside edge. An alternative, of course, is hot melt. You can hot melt these. I sew the sides and I hot melt the bottom. That way I can sew a big long strip of this and just cut off sections of it as needed. So nice. Alright, now the wire. Basically what you do to gain strength is you chuck it up in a drill. My drill, and then you put one end in a vise, you turn the drill on, and it twists it like this. Okay, so you just take 2 pieces, you chuck it up in a drill, one end goes into a vise, the other end a drill, you turn the drill on, it chucks it up, and then it makes this cool, very stiff wire. And you can make a clip that looks like this. It just goes up, so it just looks like that, and you just fold it over. Okay, where this goes, get it nice and taut up against it, and that goes right there. So it goes essentially like this, and each cell gets one. Just like that. Alright, so I have to lower the camera to show you where these holes are and how they work. Alright, so we have 2 slots right here. It's very hard to see them. You can see them right there with my hand in front of them. Okay, those were made with a wood burner. Do not use a drill. It will crack the plastic. You have to use a wood burner or something very hot. Do not breathe the smoke. It's not good for you. Okay. And where these go is if you had these in place, so there's 2 in the middle and 1 on each end. Just like that. So they separate the cells. Okay? Alright, now this thing slides into those two slots. And your anode goes down into the anode bag. And if you do a little twist, like that, works out really well. And if you pull these back and just do one of those, it makes contact with that and tightens it up. Okay? Effectively, this is where you're going to hook your wires. This is where you're going to hook your wires on the outside of your tank so they do not corrode. Okay, so just to get off camera, see how snug that is against the pipe? That's essentially what you want. You want it snug on the side. This shouldn't move up and down very much. And that's enough contact for it to get enough of the amperage. So, and then I just spread them out. And as this anode gets eaten, you just press down on it until it gets to about right here. And then I would say it's time to change that out. Wear gloves when you change it out, and you should be good to go. Alright, so now that we have everything in place, we should be able to identify where the hole needs to go and carve that hole in the side on both sides. So again, it's 4 3/4 by 3.5 on that red thing will lead you to where that needs to be carved out. And that has to be, again, with a wood burner, not a drill. For that hole, what you do is, after you get it all the way through, your cathode bar goes all the way through your box. Just like that. So now it's running into both those cells, and now your negative wire gets hooked onto here, and your positive wire gets hooked onto both of these. Okay, so you're going to have what I would call a split wire, where you could put a negative here, a negative on the other side, a positive here, and a positive on, so a positive here and a positive here. Okay, so some of the important things that I should note is the distance from the anode. Okay, if you look, I'm going to move you around here. So the distance here is a little bit greater than 2 inches, which is ideal. I've noticed in all my tanks, 2 inches bare minimum. Okay, don't go below that because the current it gets just too strong. There's the distance between here, you'll see current, you won't see these magical current lines, but they do exist. And if the current lines are too close to the piece, you are going to get all your high points building up a lot more copper than what you want. And the low spots is going to get a thing called like a real dullish gray area on flat spots. So you want at least a 2 inch, a little bit greater, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 between the anode and the cathode piece. So you could, have this here, you could have it here, depending upon what you're using or what you got in your tank. The reason why you want it so, you notice this is resting right up against here, that would minimize your wires. Okay, you don't want really super long wires either. That's a waste. You get 1,000 of these wires and they all get a buildup like this, and sooner or later you're burning your entire anode just on wires alone. The other reason is you want the ability to put a clip here. Now these got to be ABS all plastic clips. No other plastic will survive this. I will say that because of the tension on the clip, I haven't found a clip yet. Maybe HDPE, but they don't make clips in that, and I don't think it's got the spring. So this is pure ABS. It's made from a 3D printer on a ABS 3D printer. I would highlight that. I'll put the link to the clip below. It's in a STL file, so you have to have a friend that has an ABS printer to print them out. You might be able to get somebody on Fiverr to print them out for you. They're not expensive. They're well worth. They last forever. And what's nice about these, they will not corrode, and they will not drop anything in your tank that is bad. Do not use clothespins. Do not use anything with steel clips in them. Never ever, especially in a closed environment like this. It will get contaminated within days. It will cause all of the steel to rust and then fall into the tank. And no matter how much you think it's stainless steel, it's not. It's usually coated or plated steel when it comes to springs. So if you see a spring and it looks like stainless steel, it's just plated steel. That's it. And it's just as bad. Okay, so this is what a clip looks like even outside a tank. Okay, this was a brand new clip, and after a while, this is what happens. So the solution has sulfuric acid in it, and it will corrode metal, and it's a good radius around your tank. Okay, so anything that you have metal will corrode. I would say a foot or 2 foot away from this tank. Alright, so that's why we always mount the clips on the outside of the tank. So again, the negative gets attached here, and the other gets hooked on the other side. Okay, and that gets hooked up to your power supply, usually via a banana clip. Okay, so what I do is I just take an extension cord and I make my own. That way I can make them as long as I want, and I do like the fact that they're more flexible in my opinion. So all I do is take an extension cord and I solder on a banana clip, and then I solder on 2 of these clips just like that. So let's pretend for a second that this is also the positive. There's a positive one, so the positive one would go here and here. They essentially could go here and here too. You could run a jumper wire from here to here. I don't really see a need for that, but I will definitely say you will need not just one negative. You have to have 2 negatives on either side. You will see a build. If this is just one side of a negative, you're going to see a sufficient amount of copper being plated right here in your tank, but you're never going to see anything hardly at all the way down here. It's got to go through all these pieces before it gets anything on this side. Okay, so here it is with the lid. You can open the lid. Let's see if I can zoom out on that. Nope. Move around. Tip it back a little bit. There we go. So I got a lid. That's what it looks like on the inside. So there's no steel in the tank whatsoever. It's being separated. You got 2 bins filled with blue liquid. The copper sulfate mix. Make sure you clip the lid. Don't do what I just did. It has to be like clipped on there like that and then opened up. Boom. This will keep any pets that you might have that is curious out of it. I have a weird cat and it's never got into stuff, but just in case you have that fear of cats diving in here, it will keep it from dehydrating though. That's the beauty of this. This stuff will dehydrate out. All the water dehydrates out and all the acids left behind, so you're constantly filling up a new supply of water. So this will keep it from doing that, at least. And it's really easy to take these out and strain them through a couple coffee filters from time to time, or run them through a carbon filtering. Both those processes and how to make the blue juice, how to make copper sulfate, is on a class that I offer in the link below. But what I wanted to do for Christmas of 2022 was share with you this design of a tank. Again, this is a really good tank for those individuals that are trying to get away from the 3,000 milliliter beaker. Maybe they're afraid of breaking it. This has got, if these leak, which they never will, they will leak into this basin right here, and it's super safe in my humble opinion. It's good for no dehydration. I would say it has a minimum hydrogen buildup on the inside of it, not enough to even worry. But if you are a person that believes there's like these fumes that will take you out, the hydrogen gas that comes off this is very minimal. You would have to have this closed and running for quite a long time with the very high amperage in order for the hydrogen to build up. Cool. Other than that, I hope you enjoy the electroforming cell build. Ooh. Merry Christmas.